Found out it wasn't mine either. It was stolen from me over 100 years ago.
My friend.
Exactly, yeah. Unbeknownst. Shall we just,
Yeah.
just start? Okay.
הצלחת חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל.
Yeah. זכות הגנה. הגנת החיילים שמגינים על עם ישראל. No greater mitzvah.
And all the hostages safe
Yes, yes.
and home soon.
And the Ili Nishmat Yigal ben Simcha, and the Ili Nishmas Yosef Yitzchak ben Asher. Ben Asher.
And your Zayda?
Isaiah, yeah, Dav Nachman ben Moshe, yeah. And it should be there's Chuseinu as well. There's Chuseinu for all those that are Mishtatif in the Shir. Oiskim b'tzorchet tzibur, even greater than tzorchet tzibur. Talmud Torah derabim, the greatest, above all mitzvahs is learning Torah. Greater than learning Torah is knowing Torah. And even greater than that is Talmud Torah derabim. Nothing greater than Talmud Torah derabim. So it should be zchus for all those that need it. Okay, with all those introductions, let's begin. So, it's a halachic discussion interwoven in the parsha, as we often do. The shaila we're going to deal with is an old question, well treaded upon. In Mitzvah Hashem, we will see 6 different angles of how to deal with it, and whichever one talks to you, you can let me know. 6 different answers from completely different schools of thought. What's the question? The question is like this. In the end of Parshas told us, Rivka gets wind that her son Esav wants to annihilate his brother Yaakov. Yaakov, not only he took the brachas, he took the firstborn rights, when they were just 13 or 15 years old. But 50 years later, when they're 63, Yaakov's back at it again. He takes the brachas. And Esav says, oh boy, v'yakveni zeh pamayim, he's gotten me twice. We mentioned on Thursday, why was it that they're 63 now? The issue is the brachas. Why is Esav referring back to what happened 50 years before about the brachas, about the bechorah, sorry? Why is that reawakened? Why is that back on the table? So there's an old vart that Esav said, hold on, hang on a second. Shem told our mother, V'rav Yavo Yitzorah, the older one, should worship the younger one. Okay? So that's why I was very happy to sell the Bechorah, the firstborn rights, because now Yaakov is the older one, and he's going to have to worship me. So how could it be that Yaakov was told, V'yitin l'chon have a gvir la'achecha, you should rule over your brother? Doesn't make sense. That's why Esav was bringing back on the table what happened 50 years before. He's saying the whole picture doesn't make sense. I'm no longer the firstborn. And Shem said the older one, which is now Yaakov, has to serve the younger one, which is me. And now Yaakov gets the bracha that have a gvir la'achecha, you should be the ruler over your brother. How could that be? Either way, Esav has had enough, and Rivka gets wind of this. Vayishma Rivka hears, and she doesn't want to reveal this to Yitzchak. The simple reading of the psukim is that Yitzchak knew what had happened, yet he didn't think that Esav had it within him to harm Yaakov. That's the simple reading of the psukim. The Abarbanel, the Chizkunim, many Rishonim, many Achronim learn that Yitzchak never heard the original prophecy that Shem told Rivka, and Parshas told us that you're going to have 2 kids, and Mime'ayich Yiparedu, from the moment they're born, one will be in the good side, and one's going to be a harsh, tough child. And many hold Yitzchak never knew that, and that's why he always had a fond gaze upon his son Esav. But either way, it seems from the reading of the psukim, he did not think Esav had it in him to carry out any harmful act upon Yaakov. So what does Rivka tell her husband? She tells Yitzchak, just one page, she tells her husband in the yesterday's Chumash that, listen, Yaakov has to get married. He's 63 already. It's time to get married. Get married to who? The similar to Esav's wives, the daughters of Ches. Horrible. How about we send Yaakov to go get a shidduch from Besua's house, from Lavan's house, just like you did, she tells to Yitzchak. You, Yitzchak, didn't go yourself because you became sanctified by the Akedah. You couldn't leave Eretz Yisrael. But Yaakov, I think it's a good idea if Yaakov himself goes to find his own shidduch. Because otherwise, Yitzchak will say, well, listen, I sent the Shliach Eliezer, he could do the same. But we have a rule. So we had a shir a couple years ago that if Eliezer was Avram's shliach, then how could Eliezer have affected the Kiddushin when he was in Padan Aram? L'chor is not representing the Chassan himself. So some say Yitzchak appointed Avram, and Avram appointed Eliezer. We had many opinions about how that worked. You're right, simply it came from Avram. But then the shaila is, the Gemara says in Ksuvas that Eliezer mamash affected the marriage while he was at the house of Besuel. But you can only do that if you're representing the chassan. See on, I don't know if that shir is actually on the Spotify or not. Hopefully it's not, and then we could repeat it sometime. If it is, I'm getting in trouble because now I can't even I can't even give shiurim in the yeshiva. Bacham are like, hello, we heard that one already. I said I never told it to you. They said no, it's online already. So anyhow, so what?
Keep you on your toes.
That's it. So Yitzchak could have told Rivka, all right, Yaakov needs a shidduch, all right, we'll send a shliach. So for that, you can answer back, no. Rivka said, Yitzchak, you already became sanctified by the Akedah, you couldn't leave Eretz Yisrael. So you had to send a shliach. Gewöhnlich, generally, it's better to do it yourself. Mitzvah boy, better yourself. So Yaakov should do it himself. Okay. Yitzchak buys into this, and Yitzchak calls Yaakov and he tells him, I want to send you to the house of Besuel, to the house of Lavan, and I want you to go. So Yaakov was given instruction both by his mother and by his father, but the intention was different. In the simple reading of the Psukim, Rivka was telling him you should go, brach lecha, run out of here, save yourself from Esav, and Yitzchak was telling him you should go in order to do the mitzvah of getting married. In fact, in the beginning of today's parsha, it says, Vayetze Yaakov mi Be'er Sheva vayelech Choron. He left Be'er Sheva, where Yitzchak was living at the time, and he went to Choron. So Rashi has the famous question, we know he was in Be'er Sheva. It could just say he went to Choron. You don't have to tell me where he left. I know he was in Be'er Sheva. And Rashi says, when he left Be'er Sheva, you could feel it. The whole beauty of the town changed. The Beis Halevi, the original J.B. Soloveitchik, Chaim Briska's father, gives a famous explanation. He says, I have another way to answer Rashi's question. He says, Yaakov was fulfilling both the instruction of his mother and his father. It was two different mitzvahs. His mother said, get out of here before Esau rips you apart. Yitzchak said, go find for yourself a wife. So says the Beis Halevi, Yaakov did both things. Vayetze Yaakov mi Be'er Sheva. Rivka's intention was get out of here. It's not so much where you go. It says get out of here because this is where the danger is. So Yaakov left Be'er Sheva. That's what Rivka wanted. She said brach lecha, get out of here, run. It doesn't really matter where you run. The point is just don't be here. Then when it says vayelech Harana, that's fulfilled his father's instruction.
There were 14 years in between.
Before he got there, right. So he didn't fulfill it right away.
Saying in this
You're right. Yeah. When he fulfilled his mother's instruction right away. He fulfilled his father's 14 years later. Correct? Yeah. Good point. But upon him, the Beis Halevi wants to give another answer to Rashi's question that it's not. There's no extra expression here. Yaakov had two missions. One was to get out of here. That's what Rivka told him. That's Vayetze Yaakov mi Be'er Sheva. He's out of here, out of danger. That happens to be, Rivka did say to go to, but that wasn't the ikar of her instruction. The ikar of Rivka's instruction was, brach lecha, get out of here, run for your life, save yourself. And Yitzchak was all about the marriage, which was very specific, not anywhere. No, just like Avraham had been specific for Yitzchak, exactly where to go, so to Yitzchak for Yaakov. Okay, that's how our parsha begins. And it seems like Yaakov was a good boy, and he listened to his mom, and he listened to his tata. He went to the yeshiva of Aver for 14 years. Shem passed away when Yaakov was 50 years old. So when Yaakov was younger, Hitaka learned in the yeshiva of Shem and Aver. At this point, now that he's 63, Shem had passed away, but Aver, Shem's great-grandson, is running the yeshiva. He was a great Rosh Yeshiva, and Yaakov spent there 14 years. Then Yaakov reaches his uncle's home, which is in Padan Aram, Aram Naharayim, Choron. All these they're all pretty much the same area. We know that just because in Parshas Chayisora, Eliezer went to Aram Naharayim, the city of Nocher, the city of Besuel was Aram Naharayim. Yet Toldus begins by saying Rivka comes from Padan Aram. So I know Aram Naharayim, Padan Aram are pretty much the same place. And in yesterday's Chumash, again, there's an interchange between Padan Aram and Choron, the way Rivka refers to it and Yitzchak refers to it. So I know all three are pretty much the same area. There is a discussion exactly if one of the words refers to the greater piece of land, Shetach, and another is just the name of a city. I mean, Rashi himself says in the beginning of Toldus that Padan Aram, Padan means a group of, like a pair of oxen, Tzemet Boker, it's a group of. Rashi learns Padan Aram is a much greater area than Aram Naharayim. Right, so Aram Naharayim was in between the two rivers. Naharayim is the two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, the Pros and the Chidekel. There was a city in between Aram. But there was another Aram called Aram Tsoiva, which we find in Nach. And Rashi says both of them collectively is called Padan Aram. Okay, that's Rashi's take. Either way, there's a discussion in the Rishonim, but for us, we're going to assume it's all the same place. Okay. Yaakov finally goes there, and he meets up with Lavan. Lavan is upset that Yaakov came empty-handed. Yaakov originally was laden, right? But Eliphaz caught up to him, and Eliphaz had a soft spot. In fact, the Mekubalim say Eliphaz came back as unclus. It's a fascinating thing. I can't go 10 minutes without Gilgulim. The Ramemi Panu, Menachem Azariah of Panu says that Eliphaz was given instruction by his father Esav, go hunt down Yaakov, catch him on the way, knock him off. And Yaakov negotiates with him, just take my money. Oni choshev kemes, I'll be considered like a dead man, and that's how you'll fulfill the instruction of your father. And Eliphaz listened, he had a soft spot. It's funny because he's the father of Amalek, the son of Esav. You would think he would be rotten to the core. No, he actually had, because his aide Yitzchak had an impact on him, on Eliphaz, and therefore he
raised him.
Right. So even though his father was busy, doing what he was doing, you'd think Eliphaz smashed between Esav on top and Amalek underneath, you'd think he must be rotten. It's not the case at all. It's interesting. Al Kaponim, the Ramemi Pano says a whopper. He says Eliphaz came back as unclus. Unclus is from Rome. He's the Einokul of Esav. Unclus converts. The Gemara in Gittin discusses when Unclus was converting, he went to speak to Titus. And Titus told him, don't convert, harass the Jews. Says that Ramemi Pano, Titus was a Gilgul of Esav. So again, Eliphaz and Esav were meeting up. And Esav, in the guise of Titus, was advising Unclus, who was Eliphaz, to destroy the Yidden. And again, Unclus, Eliphaz did not listen to Esav. So is history repeating itself. Anyhow, back to our discussion. Yaakov finally comes as a destitute man. He comes to Lavan. And how many years is he there? So let's just do this very quick. He's infatuated, sorry to use those words, but that's just a simple reading of the Psukim. With Rachel, he loves Rachel. I mean, the Torah doesn't shy away from it. He loves Rachel.
What's wrong with it to shy away from it?
No, the word that I use, not a word you use about
Is
about
that
the others.
word from the Torah?
No, it's in Hebrew.
Exactly.
It says he loved her.
Infatuation is different than
Okay.
Right.
I thought that's you were trying to. So you're saying
No.
word is your
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, I'm not right. Not for what the Torah says. Right. For it's all about the interpretation, right? So
it brings it down to us in a more tangible way.
Right.
It's not exact translation.
What about Leah? Why was he not interested in Leah? It's interesting. The Seder Olam, one of the oldest Medrashim, says Leah and Rachel were twins. Leah was slightly older, just like Yaakov and Esav. Were twins. Right. Yeah. And in the Medrash Tanchum, it says that they were equally beautiful. It sounds like they looked very similar. Their voices were similar, because there's a whole discussion when Yaakov, the first night after the chuppah, how come Yaakov didn't know who it was? So there's a Medrash, Rabban Eicha, that says Rachel was hiding under the bed. You can imagine? Her whole night. She didn't know that she was soon going to marry Yaakov. Anyhow, but the Tanchuma says that they looked. I think there's also a Radak who says they were identical, but the Tanchuma definitely says that they were Shavin B'Yofi, which equally beautiful. How do you interpret? Does that mean they look different or the same? Don't know. It says the eyes of Leah were rakos. So we know what Rashi quotes from the Gemara, that they were tender from all the tears. The Rashbam doesn't learn the way. The Rashbam says Leah's eyes were beautiful. They were a light color. Rachel had dark eyes, and Leah had light-colored eyes. Interesting. Unkla said a similar thing, that her eyes were nice. Either way, what was the issue with Leah? So many Mefarshim learn, it's very simple. Everyone knows the statement of Rashi. The whole world was talking. Rivka has 2 boys. Her brother Lavan has 2 girls. The older for the older. Esav will marry Leah. The younger for the younger. And Yaakov heard those rumors, and so did Esav. Yaakov was scared. Yaakov knew Leah as Esav's property. He was afraid to set his eyes on her, because if Esav hears, not only he took my firstborn rights, not only he took my brachas, now he takes my wife, that'll be it. That'll be it. So many learn that's why he bechlal avoided Leah completely. Right? It wasn't because of her looks or anything. She was beautiful, just like Rachel. It was out of fear that Esav would retaliate. Okay, I think that's it.
Isn't that all this commentary about the looks, and if they're really similar, how could he choose one from the other? Isn't that discounting? Like, it's bringing it all down to looks. What about her personality? Clearly,
Leah had a wonderful personality.
But you can have a wonderful personality, but Yaakov was just in love with Rachel and Rachel's personality. Why is it so hard to understand, even if they're identical twins?
Maybe he didn't. Maybe he excluded it from his mind because of it was.
He didn't let his eyes linger on her.
According to that,
he also met Rachel first.
Trying
He
to
also
make
met
like
Rachel first.
Rachel was better looking.
That's the key.
But why can't you just say he was attracted to Rachel over personality? Yeah, he loved her. She was beautiful. They're both beautiful. But this personality, but nobody comments on that. How
did he know her personality? You think they went out, they were schmoozing?
So really, is it just that he saw her and fell in love with her?
We're talking Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu never saw a drop of zera until he's going to be 84 years old.
On the other side, so you should say that. Listen, there was nothing inappropriate, but he spoke to her. He sat at the table with her. He sat at the rock with her. He heard her personality. He heard her talking to others.
I hear. He liked the way she walked. I don't know. There was something about he saw her walking.
Why do you have to distill it to? Are they exactly
alike?
There's
an old Chassidish sefer.
How come he didn't love her if they're just?
There's an old Chassidish sefer. I don't remember which one. I saw this many years ago that says, why does the Torah speak about the beauty of the Avos' wives? Well, it's like it's like a hoirah. When you get married, make sure why does the Torah make a big deal about it? No,
keep that.
No, so the answer, there's an answer. There's an answer. There's an old Chassidish sefer says a whopper of an idea. When you buy an esrog, you buy the most beautiful esrog. There's a mitzvah to get married. Hidur mitzvah dictates that you find a beautiful woman. Hold on. For a regular person, though, has a Yetzer Hara, when you go for the more beautiful, you're doing it for God, you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for yourself, so you don't get any points for Hidur Mitzvah. But if you're someone like the others who have no Yetzer Hara, they chose, the reason why the more beautiful actually pulled at them was because of the Hidur Mitzvah. It's doing the Mitzvah more, it's like a beautiful esrog. Okay, think about that what you want. Let's get back to our...
Avram didn't even know what Sarah looked like.
You want to know, the Arizal says that Avram and Sarah were never intimate together until Avram's and Sarah's names were changed when he was 99 and she was 89. Because Sarah was incapable of having a child, different than Rivka. Rivka was barren. She was an Akara. Sarah was an islandess. She Bechal didn't have a womb. In fact, that's why the Brisker Rav famously asks, Yitzchak's busy davening for Rivka. You never find Avram davening for Sarah. He says there was nothing to daven for. She had no womb.
How could you marry an islandess?
Right.
You can marry, no, halachically can marry.
Halachically
Yeah,
you
if
can.
you know. Unless you're tricked. She's a woman. She's not a man. She's a woman. What?
That's why he was able to call her his
Oh,
sister
mitzvah
twice.
prudable. Good question. So Avram knew at some point he'll marry a shifra or this or that.
That's right. He can do proof.
You wonder maybe, but hold on. The Arizal says, and I saw the Chidor quotes this Arizal in the Midbar Kedemus, that the Arizal says that because Avram knew that Sarah was incapable of having a child, he was never intimate with her for decades and decades and decades, until the Eibishter, and even when the Eibishter said you'll have kids, Avram, even when he was 75, Hashem gave him all the brachas. No, it wasn't until he was 99 his name changed. Now he knew that it's taka going to happen. He knew Sarah now is a different Sarah. It's not Sarai, it's Sarah. Different name, different person, different body, all bet Saraf. The first time he was with her, and Yitzchak was born. Incredible.
It's all the difference. Don't you have to get a new marriage?
That's a good.
Oh.
It's really different.
Yeah. Good question.
But who's the rabbi that's going to perform
No,
the
but her
ceremony?
physical body was the same.
Right.
No, it wasn't. She all of a sudden had.
She went through a
Something
something changed
inside.
inside of her.
Internal, but isn't internal things have halachically don't have the same standard as external?
Yeah, good points. Very interesting, interesting horrors. Hans, let's get. So Lavan tells Yaakov, what could I do for you? I want you to work for me. How could I pay you? So Yaakov's honest. Yaakov says, let me work for you for 7 years for Rachel. He works for 7 years, and then he ends up, we know, the switch happens. Yaakov is all upset. You gave me lay. What does Lavan say? In our town, the older comes before the younger. Mefarshim say he was shteching Yaakov. I know in your town, you flip around who's the older, who's the younger. Nish bayuns bimkaimenu, by us, it's set in stone. There's the older, there's the younger. Leah is the older, Rachel's the younger. You marry Leah and finished. So Yaakov, but then they arrange, let's finish the Sheva brachas, and then you'll marry Rachel. And then you'll work another 7 years. And that's what happens. He ends up working 14 years. During the second group of 7 years is when all of his kids are born. And is ready to go home after 14 years. Lavan convinces him to stay to take care of the sheep. That goes for 6 years. He was by Lavan's house for 20 years. Then the Eibishter says it's time to go back home. The Eibishter says, go back al Eretz Avisecha, to the land of your fathers. Okay? Yaakov calls his wives, what? He calls his wives and says that, the Eibishter told me it's time to go back, and they agree. It takes him 2 years, ultimately, the beginning of Vayishlach. He meets Esav, he lives in Sukkot, the story of Shechem, he's in Beiskel, till he comes to Yitzchak, who was then in Hebron. It's another 2 years. So all in all, he was away from home for 36 years. 14 years he was in the yeshiva of Aver. He was 63. He went to Aver's yeshiva 14 years. He's 77. And he comes home at the age of 99. 99 is when he comes home to his father, right? His mother, Rivka, dies on the way. Nebuch, he comes home to his father. 22 years he's away. There's a famous statement in Masechta Megillah, Rashi quotes in Parshas Vayeshev, that because...
Mother dies on the way. What does that mean?
Rivka. Also he hears that Rivka died. He gets news that...
From the nurse.
While he was on the way, he gets news that his mother passes away. He never saw his mother again. He was away from his parents 22 years. So, therefore, the same thing occurs again. Yaakov loses his son Yosef 22 years. Yosef was 17 when he was sold as a slave. He goes to Egypt. He's in Potiphar's house for 1 year. He's in jail for 12 years. He's 30 years old when he stands in front of Paroi. There was 7 years of plenty and then 2 years of famine. And lo and behold, when he's 39, 22 years after he left his father, they're reunited. The Gemara says it was tit for tat. 22 years Yaakov was away from his parents. 22 years Yosef is away from him. That's what the Gemara says. Rashi quotes it in Parshas Vayeshev. And the biggest shaila in the book is what? Yaakov did nothing wrong. When he went away, his mother told him to go. His father told him to go. He was doing 2 mitzvahs. His mother said, get out of here. Danger of Esav. His father said, go find a wife. Not only he wasn't ignoring his parents, he was fulfilling their directives. He was mechabed his parents. So how does that make any sense?
He didn't have to take 22 years.
Where could he have cut?
The only time he could have cut is the stuff that he wasn't punished for, the 14 years.
Right. The Gemara says that the 14 years in the house of Aver he wasn't punished for. So there's a crucial detail Rabbi Shachar just mentioned, that when Rivka sends off her son Yaakov, she tells him, go to Lavan, v'yashavta ima, you should be by him yomim achodim, a few days it sounds like. So, but then when Yaakov and Lavan are making arrangements, Yaakov says, I'll serve for 7 years, I'll work for 7 years on behalf of Rachel. So Rashi on the spot comments, and the Mefarshim say Rashi's bothered with, how did Yaakov have the right to mention? It was Yaakov's idea, the 7 years. His mother said a few days. Yaakov says 7 years. So Rashi says, when Rivka said a few days, it didn't mean a few days. You think it takes a few days for Esav to cool off, it's not a few days. That meant, Yaakov felt that when his mother said a few days, it meant 7 years. What's the proof? The proof is, Rashi says, because the Pasuk says that when Yaakov worked for 7 years on behalf of Rachel, that it was be'einav kiyam machodim. It's another Pasuk. In his eyes, it felt like a few days. So Rashi learns the whole puzzle that it's answering the kasha. How did Yaakov have the liberty to go 7 years? His mother said a few days. A few days means 7 years. Proof is, as Yaakov is working, the Torah attests to the fact that in Yaakov's eyes it was just a few days. So that means, though, his mother said 7 years, but he's away for 22 years. Not just that. A big shaila is, if his mother Taka meant when she said a few days, it meant 7 years. What's the vart? It takes 7 years for Esav to cool off. But Yaakov went to the yeshiva of Eivor for 14 years. During those 14 years, Esav cooled off. By the time he comes to Lavan, he no longer has reshus to be there. Even if the few days his mother said meant 7 years, because that's how long it takes for Esav to cool off, the fact is he went for 14 years to Eivor's yeshiva. He's not punished for that, fine, but you can't deny the fact that 7 years happened and Esav would have cooled off. So then that means Bechlal, the whole 22 years by Lavan was unjustified. So let's see. So I want to discuss 6 approaches to this question. We begin with number 1. Number 1 is a Yalkut Shemaini, and it says the following. It's actually in Parshas Lech Lecha. It says, La'olam yishmer adam beliboy, one should be careful, shalayav lidei chet, not to come to a sin. Afilu chet hakal, even a light sin. Say Elamad, learn from Aviseinu Hashem, our early forefathers. Lo yardu l'mitzrayim ele b'shvil dover kal. We went to Egypt over something seemingly trivial. Avram told Hashem in Parshas Lech Lecha, you're promising me the land. Bameh Eda, how will I know that I'll get it? And Hashem said, what's Hashem's response? Your children will suffer 400 years because of one question. And ubischar yira kima, in reward for a small amount of fear. Sheyore Yishmael, of Yishmael had a bit of fear from his father. Avram tells Yishmael, get yourself a bris. And Yishmael goes through the bris, it's a bit of fear. The Eibusha does not allow any kingdom to rule over, right? The Arabs have, if the Arabs today are from Yishmael, is another shaila. But the fact is that the Muslims, since they've pretty much been autonomous. Well, it could be something to do with this medrash. Yishmael had a big schus, the fact that he had a bit of a trickle of fear from his father. Continues the medrash, Ubischar shtei dimois, 2 tears that Esav gave. He was given the mountain of Seir. Ein gishmei bracha, paiskim elam, that rain never ceases. So you see a small thing, the reward is incommensurate. Har Seir is officially right south of Eretz Yisrael. Somewhere in the desert over there. Ubischar, then shenota leskela v'holach lo pnei Yaakov achiv. In Parshas Vayishlach, ultimately Esav intended to do harm against Yaakov, but he changed his mind. He took his stuff and he left. He was given 100 countries. Maybe there are 100 countries today which are under Christian beliefs, maybe. But then it says like this, is the whopper. Bischar sheshoma Yaakov el Yosef nene shalov chof beishana. Because Yaakov listened to Yosef's tales about the brothers, therefore Yaakov was punished 22 years. Yosef was removed from him. It's an incredible statement to the Medrash. It seems like this Medrash argues with the Gemara. Why was Yaakov punished? The Gemara says it's because of what he did to his father. This Medrash learns that's not what happened. Yaakov was punished because he accepted the tales that Yosef was passing on about the brothers, which were quite harsh tales, that the brothers are with strange women and they're eating Eiv Menachai, etc. So that's first. So first stop, what the Gemara says is not unanimous. Okay, that's one point, one important point. We move on. There is a Sefer Iyun Yaakov. The Iyun Yaakov from Rabbi Yaakov Reisha, one of the great Gedolim 300 years ago. He tainas the following. This is approach number 2. The Iyun Yaakov says, we say every day in Brachas, there are certain things that the fruits you eat in this world, but the true reward remains for the world to come. And one of them is Kibud Avim. You honor your parents. So he says, the reward in the world to come, that's the Eibusha's business. But what are the peiros? What are the fruits you get in this world? The fruits are, if you honor your parents, it'll come back to you. Kids will be mechabed you. Those are the peiros. The peiros are you honor your parents, your kids will be mechabed you. So he says like this. The Ian Yaakov says like this. The fact is Yaakov was away from his parents 22 years. Abandoned them, didn't abandon them, he was right, he wasn't right. The fact is he didn't fulfill the mitzvah 22 years. So he can't expect to get it back in return. He doesn't get the peiros. And that's why he wasn't zoichet to have Yosef honor him for those 22 years. If you do it, you get it. You don't do it, you don't get it. That's what the Ion Yaakov says.
Then why would the 14 years be excluded? Fact is fact, and fact is fact.
Part of keep it up.
But can't you turn it around a little bit and say
Okay, it's a good point. That's part of Kibbut Avraham, learning in yeshiva.
Yosef actually honored his
points
father
out
by
that
keeping
halachas,
the Torah,
if
by
you skip
keeping
that
everything on
he
the
was
harshest
right.
conditions.
Yeah. But the Shaz Yaakov suffered. Yaakov was lost his son for 22 years. So the question is why?
No, Yaakov suffered by not.
Yeah, but why
having
did
Yosef.
Yaakov suffer? Why did he deserve to suffer?
The 22 years.
So the Ion Yaakov says it's not a punishment because what Yaakov did to his parents was justified. But since at the end of the day, right, and
Bottom line.
what's the word? In the final analysis, that's it. In the final analysis, Yaakov, the fact is, was not honoring his parents for whatever the justification was. So therefore, you don't get the peiros in this world. So he wouldn't have Yosef for 22 years. The issue with that is the Gemara clearly says Yaakov was nenish, he was punished. So the Gemara clearly seems to say it was an einish. More than that, even just in understanding, Yaakov suffered terribly from Yosef's absence. It's not stam that Yosef was incapacitated and couldn't honor his father. Yaakov had no idea where he was. He thought he was dead. It was horrible. It's not Yosef could have been.
He was gone.
Yosef could have had a fever, God for 22 years, and he's there, but he can't help his father. But that's not what happened. It was much more than that. It seems like it was an einish. So that's why many have an issue with the Ion Yankov's understanding. So there must be more to it. So option number 3 is the following. Look at number 3. There's a Rashi. It's a Rashi in Parshas Vayishlach. It's a mysterious, curious Rashi. Vatomas Devora. There's a woman called Devora. Who's Devora? She's the wet nurse of Rivka. Some Medrashim identify her actually as Rivka's mother. In Parshas Chayesara, when Eliezer took Rivka, the Torah says clearly Eliezer also took some other women as well, together with Rivka. And the Meinekas, the wet nurse, one of them. Rivka was 3 years old. Her mother came with her. So in Parshas Vayishlach it says when Yaakov was on his way back, in the 22nd year while he was away, while he was finishing his journey back to Hebron, back to his father, a number of tsaras happened. The story of Dinah, Rachel passes away, Rivka passes away, and also Devora. Devora, Rivka's wet nurse, was some reason together with Yaakov and his entourage on his journey. So Rashi asks, Ma inyan Devora beis Yaakov? How did Devora join Yaakov's entourage? She's living with Rivka. Ella says Rashi like this, Lefisha Amra Rivka LeYaakov. You have to know, in the end of told us when Rivka sends away her son, she tells him something. She says, Yaakov, I want you to go, and I'm going to call you back when the time comes. V'shalachti, I will send someone l'kachticha misham. This is crucial. Rivka told Yaakov, you will know when the time is, when I send someone. So Rashi says, Sholcha Devora etzloi. So Rivka sent Devora. That's Rashi Lechor is not learning it's her mother. It'll be strange if she sent her old mother. But there's a medrash that said it's her mother. Rashi doesn't identify who it is. She sent Devora to Yaakov, Lepadan Aram, Lotzes Misham to leave there, Umeisa that she died on the way. Medivrei Rab Moshe Hadarshan L'Madatiyah. I learned it from the words of Rab Moshe Hadarshan, who was a scholar 1,000 years ago in Narbonne, in Provence. You read this Rashi, wait a second. Did Devora make it to Padan Aram? When she dies with Yaakov's entourage, was she just on her way to greet Yaakov? Or did she make it to Padan Aram years before? And while she was traveling with them back to Eretz Yisrael, she died. When you learn Rashi, it's unclear. But if you look in the Chizkuni in number 2, he makes it very clear. Look at Chizkuni number 2. Vatomas Dvor in Parshas Vayishlach. Devora died. Pirush Rashi says, we're number 2. Ma inyan Devora, what's Devora doing in Yankov's house? Koloimar, meaning, what's the question? Mehechon nimtzas Tvorim Yankov. Rashi's problem is, how did Dvorah end up with Yankov's entourage? Hariksiv ki b'makli avarti. Yankov went to Lavan by himself. That we know. So when did she join Yankov's entourage? Elam Alamed, it teaches me, Shesholcha Rivka sent her, Es Dvorah, after Yankov to bring him back. Hu shenemar, this is what it means when Rivka tells her son Yankov, you should be with Lavan yomim achadim until your brother calms down. V'shalachti al senel kach ticha misham. V'loi rotza lavoi. Says the Chizkuni, Dvorah made it to Padan Aram. She didn't die on the way there like you might understand that reading Rashi. No, she made it all the way to Padan Aram. She told Yankov it's time to come home. He said, no, I don't want to come home. She waited there, she stayed there, bebeis Lavan's house. On the way back, she died. And since that above, we don't have her name. It says in Chayesara Vayishalchu es Rivka Chosam that Lavan and Lavan's mother, they send Rivka and Meinikta, the wet nurse without a name. Bo achshav hichskishma, some Pashat Vayishlach, it says her name was Dever. The Chizkuni says Rivka sent the messenger years before, and Yankov said thanks, but no thanks. And Dever was, she had Rivka's shlichus, she stayed there. So when did she come? Unclear, but there's a Marsha. The Marsha's yard site was yesterday, so we're going to quote the Marsha. I couldn't get it on the paper. It's Marsha and Megillah. The Marsha quotes from the Imrei Noyam, from the Baalei Tosfos, a commentary on Chumash. The Imrei Noyam says, Esav calmed down after 14 years. The same 14 years he was by the yeshiva of Aver. Esav calmed down. Immediately, Rivka sent to Vera. She came to Lavan right away, as Yankov's just beginning his tenure there, his time there. She said, come back. He's like, no, I want to marry. He's like, no. She was with him for the entire 22 years. That's what the Marsha says clearly. The Chizkuni doesn't say exactly when she got there, but if he's going with the Imrei Noyam, then for 22 years, Rivka was waiting for her son. So that
and her mother, maybe.
Right. So according to the Marsha with the Imrei Noyam, and putting the Chizkuni with the two, we have a third approach, which is Esav Taka took him 14 years to calm down. The 14 years he was by Aver. Then Rivka Taka sent Dever to the house of Lavan. And Yankov's like, I just came here, I want to get married. He wanted Rachel already, whatever the reason was. He said, no. Okay, al Pichsidus, he felt that he had a shlichus. I just came here, I'm not leaving, I have things to do, or I have to elevate the sparks, whatever the reason is. But the fact is, Loi Rot Salot Love, it's a Kli Chizkuni, and the Imrei, he didn't want to go. And according to the Imrei Noyam, 22 years Yankov refused to come. Wow. And Rivka was waiting for him. So at least when it comes to Kibud Aim, honoring his mother, his father said, get married. He wasn't married yet. But at least as far as Kibud Aim, because if you remember, we started off with the Beis HaLevi, there's two different stories going on over here. It's what Rivka wanted, what Yankov wanted. Rivka said, leave until Esav calms down. It took 14 years, the same years he was by Aver's yeshiva. The next 22 years, Yankov had no excuse because Rivka sent the shliach immediately when Esav calmed down. As soon as the 14 years of yeshiva ended and the 22 years by Lavan were about to commence. So that's another option.
The concern with that is that Rivka told Yitzchak to send for the shidduch.
Right. But Yankov knew though that his mother wanted him to leave not for the shidduch, but for the danger. And the danger was off. Devorah came to him and said, Yankov, your mother said, are you ready to come back? And he said, thank you, I'll wait a bit.
Yeah, but he even, Rabbeinu Bechai seems to
So we'll get to Rabbeinu Bechai in a moment. First, look at in number 4, there's a Medrash Agadah. It's an old Medrash that was in manuscript for many years, and it was published by Shloime Bober, Martin Buber Zeder. And see if you can make any sense. If you're able to make any sense of this, then you should be the one continuing this year.
Number what?
Number 4.
First, you have 2 4s, by the way.
You got Mendy's attention.
Oh, Taka, right. Thank you. Yes, look at that.
Sense of it? I got
okay, look at the 4 halfway down the page. Uma biksha Devorah Eitzel Yankov. What was Devorah doing by Yankov? Ella, rather like this. B'shah she'amar lo Rivka, at the time that Rivka said, V'shalachti l'kachticha misham, that was in the end of Toldos, when Rivka said, I will send somebody to you, lo yehaya roitze Yaakov lozuz meis Lavan. At that time that Rivka said, I'll send someone to you, Yaakov did not want to leave. So what did Rivka do? Shigra, she sent Devera to Yaakov to bring him back. If you could make any sense from that medrash,
Two separate messengers.
I have no idea what it means. It seems to be saying something, I don't know, it's like a mix of the Chizkuni, this and that. No, he said, at the time, when Rivka said, I'll send someone to you, he didn't want to come back. He wasn't even there yet. At the time that Rivka said that, Yaakov was with her in the kitchen in the house. What did he mean? He didn't want to come back. And in response to him not wanting to come, she sent Devera. The Chizkuni says the other way around. In response to Devera coming, he didn't want to go. It's almost like Yaakov was saying, if you send someone, I'm not going to come back. In response, he sent someone. But what does that mean? Yaakov already said he's not going to come back. I don't know. Go break your head in the wall. Okay, Akapon, that's a third approach.
It could be simple.
Yeah, how do you read it?
From when she wanted him to come home, he didn't.
But how did he know when she wanted?
He didn't.
No, she said, she has to send a message.
One messenger, and he said no. Then she sent Devera to Mamish.
So there were two messengers. But so what's B'shah she'amar lo Rivka?
Shows at the time, sitting in the kitchen.
Right. At that time, he didn't want. It's almost like at that time, Yaakov's already saying that I don't think I'm going to be ready to come back. So what did she do? She sent Devera.
No. How could he say? In the kitchen? I don't know.
I'm ready so the word B'shah does. Let's take out the word B'shah. How else are you going to read it? That Rivka said, "I'll send someone to get you back." When that ended up happening, Yaakov refused. So then she sent Devera. So who was the first messenger? I don't know. Yeah. I think take out the whole thing. You know,
Rivka says.
Listen, when it comes to it was only printed 100 years ago or so when Buber printed it. It's a fantastic medrash.
Does the commas matter?
What?
Do the commas matter?
He put in the commas are a guess, but how would that help?
Because Ella b'shah she'amar lo Rivka shalachta kach nesham. So the loy so the Ella b'shah she'amar lo Rivka v'shalachta. That's one part.
So
and
she
then
told
loy haya right to Yaakov.
When? At what point? When Dvera came?
You have to assume when Dvera.
Like the Chizkuni. Okay. So then how do you read the rest of it? So what did Rivka do in response? Well, maybe she sent Dvera twice. I don't know. Okay.
Very weird.
Al Kapanim.
Could be she sent two different messengers. That's why she sent Dvera. Dvera's your grandmother. Dvera's your grandmother.
Right. So who was the other shliach?
The other shliach was a regular person.
So in other words, like this. Hold on.
It's a grandmother.
Hold on. Yeah. Which medrash identifies that Dvera was Rivka's mother? It's the same medrash Haggadah. So you want to Taina, that's why she wasn't the first option. It's not respectful. The first option was she sent whoever.
When he said no, she had to send someone heavy.
Send grandma.
Exactly. And so if I can, so then maybe Taka, that's a big chiddush though that Yaakov, well, the two shluchim went. That's
more respectful than shulch.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. That's all I can tell you. Okay, look at the top left. Rabbeinu Bechai is going to be answer number 4. Vayishlach Yitzchak as Yaakov. This is the answer of Rabbeinu Bechaya. In the end of Parshas told us, yes, Lishol, we should ask, Kivon shebishluchusam halach, he went because they sent him, hey machul, they forgave him. They were meichel. They said, leave us, we want you to go. Lama nanish, why was he punished on the midst of Kibbud Aveim when he delayed 22 years? That he was punished that Pirush Mimena Yosef was separated 22 years connected. How could that be? The F Shaloimar. So in the top left corner in the Rebbeinu Bechaya, the 5th line. F Shaloimar could be Daitom Haya Sheyikach es Leah. Why did he have to marry Rachel? He could have married Leah. Lavan would have given to her on the spot. The whole 7 years was because he wanted to marry Rachel. He could have married Leah right away. V'sheyachzer miyad k'sheyishlach b'shviloi. Return right away when he gets the message. Avalhu nosnen berachel aktana liyaf. He wanted Rachel because of her beauty. If you could say such a thing. It was the beauty of, you liked it, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, Chaya says there's no problem saying it. So we have because of Hiddur Mitzvah. You could say this too. He says he Dafka set his eyes on Rachel not because of her charming personality, because of Yafya. Either Tanchuma says they were equally beautiful. Okay. Equally beautiful doesn't have to mean identical. Could be each one had their own. Right,
inner beauty and outer beauty. Clearly it was outer beauty, but also inner beauty.
Okay. Va'amar. Yaakov came up with the 7 years. You know why he came up with the 7 years? Because he knew that Lavan wouldn't be interested in giving Rachel. She's the younger sister. So Yaakov therefore had to say, I'll give you something, 7 years of work.
Wait, don't you...
But if he wanted Leah, it could have been immediately.
He came empty-handed, that he needed to do... He had no...
There are those that say, you know why Yaakov was at fault? Because he gave Eliphaz all of his money. Sometime if Yaakov would have come in laden...
Right.
He could have given love and all of that and taken Rachel on the spot. Because he came up with the idea. What?
He also would have been dead.
Well, that's a technical...
Nah, he could have... Yaakov, Eliphaz wouldn't have killed him. Eliphaz wasn't going to kill Yaakov.
Shot is Ani Kames. How would he be alive?
I don't think Eliphaz was strong enough. Yaakov was Hebrew.
Clearly he was, because otherwise Yaakov wouldn't have given him all
Right,
his money.
Eliphaz was a gibur. There's no question Eliphaz was a gibur.
Same gene.
But on the other hand, Eliphaz didn't have it in him. Do you think the reason why Eliphaz didn't kill Yaakov was only for the money? Fakert. Eliphaz didn't say your money or your life. It was Yaakov that said...
Giving him an excuse.
No, because Eliphaz said, what am I going to do with my father's instruction? Yaakov said, take my money. Yaakov could have said something else maybe. Could have... He taught Eliphaz on a poor man's choshev kames. He could have said, I don't know, take my watch. Without a watch, I'm like a mace too. Exactly. He could have. Exactly. He could have said exactly. I have no house. I'm already kames. Yaakov could have sold him anything. Eliphaz just wanted to pacify. Exactly. So sometime that the reason that Yaakov had to work all those years was because he came empty-handed. That was his decision. He's held responsible. Pretty harsh. But says Rabbeinu Bechaya, something else. He could have married Leah. The whole delay was his desire. He had to marry Rachel. Therefore, he was punished. Now, many point out that's all good as far as Yitzchak said. Yitzchak said, go get married and then come back. But his mother said, stay there. A, until Esav calms down. B, until I send a messenger.
Calm down happened already, though.
Did it calm down or not?
14 years, no?
Wow, that's the Imrei Noyam. In other words, according to Rabbeinu Bechaya, did Esav calm down while Yaakov was in yeshiva?
Clearly not.
Well, 22
He came
years
after
Where?
Yishlach.
Then he hugged him, he kissed him.
He kissed
That's
him, he
called
tried to
calming
kill
down.
him.
That's because all the presents and the pit.
Well, hold on. Before we said the Imrei Noyam says he calmed down after 14 years, he didn't scream.
No, because what you're saying practically, that's the Imrei Noam's opinion. But the Torah tells us he was still coming to kill him. Well, Yaakov
was surprised.
Esav was coming with 400
Yaakov was surprised. Was Yaakov surprised or not surprised? Yaakov sent people. He said he gave him a whole drasha, and then they came back and said, "You think that Esav's your brother? No, he still harbors animosity towards you." It sounds like Yaakov was surprised. They had a news flash for him. Sounds like Yaakov thought Esav had calmed down, and it's 36. It's 36 years later, long time.
Holding a grudge.
In the world of Rabbeinu Bechaya, what will you say? If you say Esav did calm down, so then it makes sense. As far as Rivka's instruction, it was time to go home. As far as Yitzchak's instruction, he could have married Leah right away. He was already in yeshiva 14 years. Esav calmed down, but if Esav hadn't yet calmed down, so Yaakov still can't come back. As far as his mother. But as far as his father, he has to. Now the rule is, if your mother says, give me a drink of water, your father says, give me a drink of water, your father comes first. Because you have to honor both, but you and your mother have to honor your father. We had a shir about this a while ago. So someone according to Rabbeinu Bechaya like this. Even if Esav hadn't calmed down, the story is like this. As far as Rivka is concerned, he's allowed to be by Lavan. His father wants him back. You could have married Leah and come back. What are you doing there? What are you doing over there? And you and your mother have to listen to your father. So because of Kibbutz
there are three contradictions. One of them is that Esav calmed down, but it wasn't calm now because he married Leah. Remember, Leah was...
Esav married Leah?
Remember, you said...
Esav would have been upset that Yaakov married Leah.
Early on that she was the older to the older.
Oh, you're saying maybe that caused... that created a new... Oh, it's beautiful. It's gewaldig. Esav Taka calmed down.
He calmed down.
But then it was a new story. That's very interesting. Okay, very interesting. A whole new, beautiful. Very nice. Okay, number two.
The second part of it is you say that he got married, so she could have gone. But it could have gone, you say, after Leah. Right?
That's what Rabbeinu Bechaya says. He could have married her right away and left. That's what he says. That's right.
He could not have married her right away because he came empty-handed. Even for Leah.
Lavan was happy. No, he says Lavan would have been happy to give her over.
Twins and beautiful, and they look the same. He wouldn't have been if she wasn't the misguide that he wanted to get rid of.
I hear what you're saying, but listen, Rabbeinu Bechai says he could have married her right away.
I understand, but he
Rabbeinu
wanted
Bechai
6
didn't learn that
different
medrash
opinions.
that
So I'm
they were
giving
both-
Exactly.
you number 6.
Rabbeinu Bechai didn't learn the medrash that they were equally
Exactly.
beautiful.
Number 7.
Okay, 7.
Number 7.
Sorry.
Okay, fine.
Well, 7 is
Let's go
special.
weiter. Okay, so that's answer number 4. So the first thing we said was with the Yalkut Shemoni, Bechlal, Yaakov was punished for a different reason because he heard Yosef's stories about Yosef's brothers. Number 2, we saw the Eon Yaakov. It's just, if you honor your parents, you'll get it back from your kids. It's just, that's the payers. If you don't, then you won't get it back. We had issues with that. The third was with the Chizkuni and the Marsha, the Imrei Noyam, that Taka Esav calmed down while Yaakov was still in yeshiva. Rivka already sent the wet nurse. Yaakov said thanks, but no thanks. He was punished 22 years. What was he doing? Rabbeinu Bechaya says he could have married Leah and he would have left right away. Answer number 5 is the following. Look at the Chidah number 5. This is the Chidah in the Midbar Kedemus. Kibud Ava'im, honoring your parents. It says like this. Kaimalon, we hold the father that's moichel on his honor, the covered is mochel. A parent can be moichel on their honor. Omnam b'sefer Chsidim in Siman 5:73 Kosav Hagam, even though that your father was moichel, nenish b'dei shemaim, the Eibusha doesn't forgive. Your parents forgive, but the Eibush expects you. We had a shir once that when it comes to honoring your parents, there's 2 things. It's interpersonal. It's also between you and God. Right. You owe it to your parents, but the Eibush also wants you to do it. Your parents can be meichel only part of the mitzvah, the interpersonal part, the ben adam lechavera part. But the part between you and Hashem, the Eibush still expects.
First 5.
Exactly. You're right with the Ramban and the Sefer Achinuch, exactly. Rabbeinu HaArizal Kosav, that tzaddikim in Gan Eden, when they want when a tzaddik is set to be elevated in heaven, medaktikim in heaven, they point out al masha also bekatnusim, when you were a child, when you were 7 or 8 years old, to your parents. It's an issue when you're in Gan Eden, not when you get there, but when you get elevated from one mountain to another, one palace to another. If I'm not mistaken, the Arizal once told Reb Chaim Vital, right, that was having some issue in Kabbalah. The Arizal says it's because you hurt your mother when you were nursing, right? When you were nursing from your mother, maybe you bit a bit too hard or something. Yeah, or something like that. You say, yeah. Forget about 7 and 8. You're talking about mamash a baby. It's incredible. What?
I was waiting for you to say a whopper.
Yeah. Anyhow, so the Arizal quotes it from Sefer Chassidim. Look at number 6. We have it on the page. This is from the Sefer Chassidim.
That's why he got punished.
Hold on, we'll see. So the Sefer Chassidim says this, he's talking about you have someone who's a wealthy fellow, and the father has a demeaning parnasa. He's discussing someone who's an usher, and the father, I don't know, has a demeaning job. He says, even though the father tells the kid, don't worry, I'm happy, I don't know, doing whatever demeaning labor is doing. I'm happy being the janitor. Ein ze mechila. The kid should know the father was meichel. It doesn't count. The Sefer Chassidim says, don't your father could be meichel. That's midinei adam. That's interpersonal. But dinei shamayim, between you and heaven, the son, you're chayev. How could the son allow the father to have a demeaning job? The father's okay with the father's meichel. The son has a responsibility to God. That's what the Sefer Chassidim says. Look at number 7. This is another chidah in his Sefer Bris Ha'olam, a commentary in the Sefer Chassidim. He says in number 7, Umasha Amar, this that he says, Ha'av shemochel al kvoidoi mochel, it works, but mochel medina adam, only interpersonally. Medina shemayim yerchayev, he says, Bahachi nicha, with this says the chidah, I can answer an old question. Maybe you heard of the question. Masha Amr Chazal, that Yaakov was punished. Nenish Yaakov v'ino olav shalom 22 years on Bittul, honoring his father and mother. V'yesh lohar, and the question is Yitzchak v'ino shalom kashehu atzmai tziva. Yitzchak told him vayishlach Yitzchak es Yaakov v'yelacharana. Yaakov went as a messenger from his father to Charan. Lama loy machal lekvaydai. Why wouldn't that be considered that Yitzchak was meichel on his honor? It could be he's asking, why didn't Yitzchak choose to be Meichel his honor? Okay, whatever. But upon him, there should have been Mechila. Shelo Yonash Yankov Vino Al V'Shalom. Our question, why was Yankov held responsible? Amnam Al Pi Dir Ben Anicha, now it's understood. Yitzchak Taka was Meichel. Va'ahani, it helps L'dinei Adam, interpersonal. Avalakati, but still Pashut remains Dinei Shamayim. For the Eibush, it's not enough. Yankov has a moral obligation towards God to honor your parents, even if they're okay without it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu medaktiv with Chassidim kechut hasayra, even a hair's breadth. Therefore, he was punished 22 years that Yosef HaTzadik left him, and he was terribly pained. That's what the Chidah says. That's the famous answer of the Chidah based on the Sefer Chassidim. It's pretty harsh. In other words, Yitzchak was Taka Meichel, but B'dinei Shemayim is still chayiv. Listen, the Sefer Chassidim says it clearly, so it sounds like a good answer.
It's very similar, I think, to the other pirush of that bottom line. He wasn't there.
Or the Eon Yankov. But here we're saying it's a punishment.
Right, but that's the same idea of like the
Eon Yankov says it wasn't
punishing, because at the end of the day,
fine. It sounds more like an onush, like the Eibush expected more. There is a well-known letter of the Radvaz. The Radvaz says a bit different than the Sefer Chassidim. The Radvaz writes in a letter, even if your parents are Meichel, you still have a mitzvah to honor them. Their Meichel may be the obligation, whatever. You, on your part, have a mitzvah to honor them. Now, is that saying the same thing as the Sefer Chassidim? I think not, because if you look in the Radvaz letter, he writes in the middle of the letter, if your parents are Meichel, it removes all punishment. You still have a mitzvah, but all punishment is removed. According to the Sefer Chassidim, it sounds like punishment remains. There is some level of punishment because you have an moral obligation to God. I'll tell you the issue. What?
According to Radvaz, why was Yaakov?
According to Radvaz, this answer wouldn't work. We'd have to have another answer, right?
There's a bit of a legal question here
Yes.
for our friends here, the Cohen. If your parents, that means that they withdraw. They technically withdraw the requirement because they're not forgiving. No, they're eliminating. In other words, they're absolving.
Sorry, hold on. If your father says he doesn't want a cup of tea, then don't bring him a cup of tea. Right. But if you know that he wants a cup of tea, but he says don't worry about it, it's not the same as him not wanting the cup of tea. He's not eliminating. He still wants the cup of tea, and you can't.
So that's the question I'm asking.
He removes the obligation,
or just
forgiving. Exactly, the second one, ignoring. Hold on. I'll tell you the kasha on this. The kasha on this is number 8. There's another statement of the Chidah. To me, it seems to be a contradiction. You'll tell me what you think. It's another Chidah in the Sefer Chassidim. He says like this: Toivu l'kol yorei shemayim sheyimchol lebneim. The Sefer Chassidim says elsewhere that a person should l'chatchila be meichel on his kids, because else your kids will never get it 100% right. So for their sake, be meichel on everything. He says, wait a second. Afal gav d'Rabbeinu l'kam on the Sefer Chassidim later in Siman Tov Kufayin Gimel, we saw number 7, says when a father is meichel on his kavod, the kavod is machol hainu midinei adam, but b'dinei shemaim you're chayiv. So the Chidah is asking, how could the Sefer Chassidim say in the second place that a parent should l'chatchila be meichel and then their kids have no problem? What do you mean? The Sefer Chassidim's personal opinion is that only helps halfway, the interpersonal issue, not between you and God. So says the Chidah, 2 answers. Mikol makom ahani ha-mechila ksas. First of all, mechila helps a bit. Even b'dinei shamayim, the mechila helps a bit. Or at least maybe he's saying the fact that it works interpersonal is considered it helps a bit. Right. Okay. Right. But I don't know exactly. But inami, another pshat. Efshel l'chalik, you could make the following difference. The dvarim kalim v'kayotze, if it's a small thing, kvoid mochel agarmi. If it's small, then taka, the father can completely be mochel, and even between you and God it disappears. Ubahachi nicha ahid Rav Huna. There's a story that Rav Huna kara shiroi. Rav Huna tore the silk garments of his son to test if his son would, how he would react. And the Gemara says, "What? How could he do that? Why, he's putting his son in a vulnerable position. Lifnei Ivri is putting a stumbling block in front of his kid." And the Gemara says in Kiddushin, "To kadimu machali kari," that Rav Huna lechatchila was meichel, that I don't care what my son will do to me. But wait a second, if the son is still chayiv b'dinei shemayim, va'after machal, even if the father will be meichel, he's still his What's he bringing upon his son? Maisi leili dechiv shemaim is going to hurt his kid. Elo, he says like this. Elo the dvarim kalim must be, if it's a small issue, then a father could be moichel completely, and it covers both bases, even between you and heaven. But then he says like this, or he was goyim. If the father is goyim that the kid is mekel in his honor, it's mutter legamri, kvoide mochel caused it. Af bedin shemayim.
Like here.
He said, that's my shayla. So the Chidah says like this, that it could be by the story of Rav Huna, either he was, it's a small thing, and therefore the mechila works on both bases, or it could be since the father causes it, the kid's completely exalted, even towards heaven. So the shayla is, go back to number 7, Yitzchak sent Yaakov away, his parents caused it. He went on their shlichus. So I don't know why the Chidah in number 7 doesn't cross-reference to what he said in number 8.
Because he didn't cause him staying away for that long.
One.
Yeah.
And he says Simon Kuflun base. I know. I cut it off. But he doesn't. He just says, look, he throws a bunch of Makairas and Machzik Brach and shit. Right. No. But
you loop back in here that he didn't cause him to stay that long.
Told him to go, but that's the whole part.
That wasn't that what the answer to the Chidah was, that Yitzchak was completely Meichel all 22 years.
Right. No, but now you loop the Goyim.
About why Hashem still kept him.
He didn't Goyim to stay forever.
Oh, you're going with Rabbeinu Bechaya. Oh, he was only Goyim to go get Leah.
Yeah.
You say like, okay. I'll give you the answer number 9. In answer number number 5. Look at number 9. This is a statement from Rabbi Yosef Engel in his commentary called Gilyonei Ashas. In Vienna, Rabbi Teitelbaum's father in 19. Anyhow, Rabbi Yosef Engel, the Gemara. The Gemara in Baba Basra Daf Daled Amud Beis says the following: you have a neighbor. Imagine you have a field, and your neighbor has many fields. He surrounds you from all 4 sides, right? And your neighbor decides to build a wall between his field and your field, and he builds a wall on 3 out of the 4 sides. Right? You're in the middle. He surrounds you from all sides. He builds a wall on 3 sides, and you don't. The Gemara mentions it could be you don't have to be mishtatef at all in the payments because you say I didn't need the wall. But if you will then on your own go and build the 4th wall, then you have to pay your part in the first 3 as well. Why? So the Gemara says, "Im amad v'gad service." If the guy in between, the middle guy, the nikif, the guy being surrounded, the surroundee, megal of zakol, then he has to pay his share for all the other walls.
Shows he
The
likes
Gemara says, "Gola died to the nichle," because now he shows he likes it. So nichtav b'tzid on the side of Yosef Engel's Gemara says like this. Rashi says, Kivan the Goders at Sada Apasuach, since he fenced off the open side, Goladaita, he shows the Nichel is happening. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, Isi I saw b'sefer echad, I saw in a sefer, Medaktik mehach, proves from here, Dekan, Im Oma v'chol Goladaita the Nicheleye, the Megaglam v'sakolka, he's just quoting the Gemara, that if you're happy with the 4th side, you pay for everything. Duhu adin kozeh ha-mavatal metal matera. Someone works a whole day, right? Why aren't you learning? I can't. So you have an excuse. But then you come home at 8 p.m. at night and you have an hour to learn. You watch Netflix, you lose your excuse for the whole day. Because once you show that you're not interested in learning, don't tell me the reason you weren't learning at 2 p.m. because you had a business meeting. You wouldn't have learned anyhow.
Who is this? Mango?
He doesn't want to say. He doesn't want to hold on. Bizman sheyesh le. Oh, you'll see. Bizman sheyesh le pnai lumoid. If at the time. What? If at the time that you're able to learn, you don't, then Yutzrach Littendin, you're going to have to explain even on the time when you couldn't learn, even at 2 p.m. during the business meeting. Because don't tell me the reason you weren't learning because you were busy. Because even when you had time, you weren't learning either. That's what it says in... What was that?
When you do learn, it's also
that it was real.
Yeah, the Rogatchover says if you learn Baiker Be'erev, it's as if you learn the entire day.
15 minutes.
Exactly, for sure. It works to exactly. So apparently it's in some Musar Sefer. And the Raya is from the Gemara and Baba Basra, from this legal din that once you build the 4th wall, retroactively, I know your feelings on the first three. Says Reb Yosef Engel, V'yesh l'daktik kazeh b'yoser korev. I have a better raya for this Musar Sefer. From a Yerushalmi in Ksuvas Perkei Alochaches. Im morda koidem shenasis nida. If a woman rebels against her husband, refuses intimacy, then the husband can diminish the amount of her ksuva. But what if she's married and then she becomes a nida? So for a week she refuses intimacy, so every day he's knocking off a certain amount. Then she has her nida cycle. So anyway, she can't be with him. We still diminish. Exactly. Gam b'mei nidasa, because we know that she's still in the state of married. Right. So I thought, and then I saw that the Ben Ish Chai says it's clearly in his Sefer Ben Yehoyada that Yaakov Taka had permission to marry whoever he wanted to marry. Unlike Rabbeinu Bechaya, Yitzchak said, go marry your wife. He didn't say which one. He didn't have to marry Leah, right?
He didn't say the first one.
You can marry whoever you want.
Right. How
long did it take Yaakov to marry her? It was supposed to be 7, but he was wasn't his fault. He was doped. It took him another 7 years, 14 years. Then he should have come back home. He stayed another 6 years to work for Lavan's sheep because Lavan asked him. He could have refused. Then he schlepped. It took him 2 years. 2 years to get back home. He spent 1.5 years in Sukkot. What's he doing there? So the Ben Yehoyada says it's based on this idea. Yeah. Once you have extra time, and then you lose your excuse for the first 14 years. Netflix. So that's it's also a harsh answer. Netflix. Anyhow, these are 5 possibilities.
The Netflix.
6 possibilities that we have to this.
The Netflix cause. The Netflix cause.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's what we took out of the share.
You were the Musar Sefer.
I'm in big trouble.
Okay.
Yashakayach.
You're not with me.
I just got